My boyfriend liked to test my love for him. He would pretend to be sick so I'd run out into the rainy night to buy him medicine. He'd leave hickeys on his neck on purpose, just to make me jealous. He even made me wait 3 hours in the rain, just so he could show off in front of his friends. One day, I announced unilaterally that we were done. But he thought I was just throwing a tantrum. On my birthday, he called. "All right, don't be mad anymore. Come to Starlight Club tonight, I've got a surprise for you." I told him I wasn't free. He scoffed. "What could you possibly be doing? I'm getting married today." Chapter 1. This was the 3rd hour I'd been standing outside Paul's building, holding a cake. The messages I sent him had, once again, disappeared into the void. Just as I was about to leave, I heard cheers from upstairs. Paul and his friends leaned over the balcony, whistling and shouting excitedly. "Diana. Paul said you'd wait for him 3 hours in the rain. We didn't believe it, turns out it's true. Your love is seriously enviable. Paul's one lucky guy." They laughed and jeered, crowding around Paul like he was some kind of hero. I stood there, stunned, as the colors drained from everything around me. Black and white. Only Paul remained. He had a smirk on his face. The way he looked at me, it was like I was a loyal little dog who had earned him bragging rights. Suddenly, it felt like someone had torn a hole in my chest. Cold wind poured in. It hurt. Paul waved at me. "Diana, come here." I looked at him for a few seconds, then turned and walked straight into the rain. We'd been together for 5 years. From the very beginning, when he had nothing, all the way until now, when he had his own company. I watched Paul grow from a broke kid to a small business owner. I was there for it all. When he landed his first deal, he held me and cried like a child. "Diana, I swear I'll treat you right. I'll love you forever." He sounded so sincere. I believed him without hesitation. I don't know when he changed. All I know is, the memories he left me are no longer sweet. He once faked being sick to see how much I cared. It was deep winter, snow falling hard that night. The moment I heard he wasn't feeling well, I didn't hesitate, I ran out to get him medicine. The roads were icy. I slipped and fell 4 times. When I got back, Paul stood in the doorway and hugged me. "Baby, you're amazing," he said. Then he told me he wasn't actually sick. He just wanted to test my love. I didn't even know how to feel. My knees were bruised, throbbing with pain, and my eyes stung. Another time, just to make me jealous, Paul deliberately let another woman leave hickeys on his neck. We had our biggest fight ever that day. But afterward, he posted on his social media. "My baby really loves me, why else would she get that jealous? There have been too many ridiculous things over the years. I've lost count." As I passed by the trash bin, I threw the cake inside. After all these years, Paul had finally worn down every last bit of love I had for him. Chapter 2. As I walked through the rain, another rainy night from years ago came to mind. Back then, Paul and I were only sophomores in college. It had started raining while I was on my way home from a tutoring job. When I got off the bus and looked up, I saw a boy standing beneath the dim glow of a street lamp. He was holding an umbrella, waiting for me. The moment he saw me, he ran over with a smile. He pulled a roasted sweet potato from under his jacket and shoved it into my hands. "It's still hot, hurry and eat." That kind of open, blazing affection, I felt it for the first time. But it only lasted 5 years. He's still the same person. And yet, everything has changed. Truth is, I had already grown disappointed a long time ago. I was just clinging to the beautiful memories he once gave me, still holding on to that sliver of hope. What if, just maybe, he changed back? But reality proved that was nothing more than wishful thinking. The moment he started using my love as something to show off to others, our relationship had already lost its meaning. Today was his birthday. I had planned to have a serious conversation with him. About us. About the future. But Paul never gave me that chance. Instead, he used 3 hours to show me the truth. There is no future between us. And when I think about it that way, those 3 hours were well spent. Just before I walked out of their line of sight, I heard their voices behind me. Looks like she's mad. Paul, shouldn't you go after her? Paul's voice was casual, slightly amused. No need. She just likes to act out. I've gotten used to it after all these years. She'll come back soon enough. He was so sure of himself. He thought that now that he had a successful career, I'd be a fool to ever walk away from someone as valuable as him. But I'm not coming back. Paul, I don't want you anymore. Chapter 3. He didn't call me. Not once. The next morning, I waited outside his building until I saw him leave for work. Then I returned to the home we once shared. I left him a letter. There wasn't much to pack, just my ID and passport. As I opened the door to leave, I couldn't help but glance back one last time. This was the apartment Paul and I rented right after graduation. Back then, it was just bare concrete walls, but we decorated it together. Picked out the furniture together. Hung up the string lights together. When we finally had the money, we bought the place. It's small, but we never moved. Every corner of it is filled with our memories. And now, those memories feel like a cruel joke. The day I boarded the plane and left Z City, I switched to a new SIM card. Everything related to Paul, I left it all behind in that city. Years later, I returned to H City. The taxi was stopped at the gate of the Liguan residence. This is a private estate, the guard said. No unauthorized access. I rolled down the window. Uncle John, it's me. The elderly security guard squinted down at me, then his eyes widened. Young miss. You've finally come back. The vast estate felt almost deserted. So even after I'd been kneeling in the courtyard for an hour, no one came out to quietly place a cushion beneath me. Dad, I really know I was wrong. My father, his hair now gray, sat silently in the rocking chair with his eyes closed. After a long while, he finally spoke. I can still remember how determined you were to leave this family for that broke kid. Your mother pleaded with you, but you didn't listen. I tried everything, yelling, beating, and in the end, you told me you wanted to sever ties as father and daughter. Dad, I choked, tears welling up in my eyes. I regret it. From now on, I'll do whatever you ask me to. The rocking chair stopped. He slowly opened his eyes and turned to look at me. If that's the case, then start by marrying Stuart. I froze. Stuart? That unfamiliar name unearthed memories I had nearly forgotten. The Smiths and my family had been close for generations. When I was 18, I was engaged to Stuart. But when I left Heischer for Paul, I'd gone to Stuart personally to apologize and ask him to call off the engagement. What did he say back then? He said, since we were kids, when have I ever refused you anything you wanted? So naturally, I'd assumed the engagement had been voided. I looked up, dazed. Stuart isn't married? He must be 30 by now. How could he be, when you were gone? My mother said as she walked out with a fruit platter and placed it on the table. She gave me a sidelong glance. Stop kneeling already, you're in the way. I staggered to my feet. Then I heard her say, now that you're back, the first thing you should do is go to the Smiths and apologize. And while you're there, get the marriage certificate with Stuart. Chapter 4. When I visited the Smiths, Stuart wasn't home, he was abroad, negotiating a business deal. But the elders welcomed me warmly. It wasn't the scene I had pictured. No cold glares, no sarcastic remarks. I heard you've been taking time for yourself overseas these past few years, one of them said. Now that you're back, are you staying put? I nodded, stunned. Yes. Stuart's mother took my hand in hers. Back then, when Stuart insisted on breaking off the engagement without explaining anything, that really was our family's fault. We've already given him an earful. And we understand why you left the country to clear your head. And now. About you and Stuart's wedding. I lowered my head, ashamed. I'll leave everything up to the families. After I left the Smith residence, I gave Stuart a call. It only rang for a few seconds before he picked up. His voice hadn't changed, still calm, deep, and magnetic as ever. Hello? Stuart. It's me. I felt deeply guilty facing Stuart. I didn't expect our engagement was still valid. I paused. You probably don't want to be tied to someone like me. I'll try to find a way, see if we can end things as peacefully as possible. Before I could finish, he cut me off. And what? He said, it's not like you committed a crime. You just had an unfortunate relationship with someone else. That's not a stain. When's the wedding? The topic shifted so fast, I couldn't keep up. It's not set yet. But both families are pushing for it. All right. I'll come back as soon as I can. Even after the call ended, I felt dazed. Children from families like ours are supposed to understand early on, our marriages are never really ours to decide. Understanding that is one thing. Accepting it peacefully. That's another. In that sense, I think I have a lot to learn from Stuart. He returned to the country 2 weeks later and came straight to Leguan residence with gifts in hand. He'd become even more composed and refined, warm and respectful when speaking to my father, effortlessly charming my mother without missing a beat. No wonder they adored him. I watched from the side. When his eyes met mine, I quickly lowered my gaze and took a sip of tea. Our wedding was set for the 5th of May. That day also happened to be my birthday. While I was getting my makeup done in the morning, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello? Whoa, this number really is yours. The voice was unmistakably Henry, one of Paul's friends. Diana. We finally found you. Where the hell have you been? Paul's been losing his mind. I had no idea how he got this number. My brows furrowed slightly. Don't contact me again. Paul and I are over. There was a shuffle, and someone else took the phone. You left me a letter and just unilaterally broke up with me. I didn't agree to it, so it doesn't count. It was Paul. Diana, what are you mad about now? Just because I made you wait 3 hours in the rain? You left home over that? Isn't that a bit dramatic? I listened quietly, not even bothering to argue. All it did was remind me how right I had been to leave. Okay, I'm sorry. Paul's tone softened. Baby, don't be mad, okay? I just had no sense of security. I was only trying to test your love. Please don't be mad. Today's your birthday. I've prepared a surprise for you at Starlight Club. Can you come, just for a bit? In the background, I could hear the noise of people laughing and shouting. Diana. Paul's going to propose. Aw. So romantic. Shut up. Paul laughed. Now the surprise is ruined, thanks a lot. The noise on the other end gave me a headache. I raised a hand to massage my temple. The makeup artist flinched. Oh. I'm sorry, Miss Myler, did I hurt you? No, go ahead. Of course, Miss Myler. I promise today, you'll be the most beautiful bride in the world. Paul paused on the other end of the line. Diana. What are you doing right now? I was quiet for a few seconds. Then I spoke slowly and clearly. Paul, I'm getting married today. Silence. Just as I was about to hang up, Paul suddenly laughed. Diana. You're using my own tricks on me, huh? Trying to make me jealous? You almost had me there. His tone was forcedly light. But strangely, I felt a sudden sense of relief. Maybe it was the realization there would be no more ties between us from now on. I'm not lying. I said with a soft laugh. We got the marriage certificate last month. Today's the wedding. No need to invite you for the banquet. It wouldn't be appropriate. My husband probably wouldn't be too happy. Diana. Paul's voice spiked, raw and angry. What the hell is wrong with you? You. I ended the call. Removed the SIM card. Tossed it straight into the trash can. Even the makeup artist was startled and froze in place. I turned to her and gave a small smile. Sorry about that. Please, go on. Chapter 5. Our wedding was held in a church in H City. The decorations weren't generic or mass-produced, they were thoughtful, beautifully arranged. I couldn't help but ask the assistant. Which company did this? It's really nice. She leaned in and whispered. Miss Myler, Mr. Smith designed it himself. Oh. I was stunned. I hadn't expected Stuart to put so much thought into what was essentially a business marriage. There were people guiding me through every step, what to do, when to walk, where to stand. In a haze, I found myself at the altar. Stuart stood with his back to me in a tailored suit. At the priest's cue, he turned around. Cheers erupted from the crowd. We locked eyes across the aisle. Was I imagining things? There was a smile in his eyes, and it actually looked genuine. Maybe I needed to learn from him, master the art of appearances. I composed my expression, took my father's arm, and walked forward until my hand was placed gently into Stuart's warm palm. The ceremony went smoothly. It was after the vows that things got exhausting. Our parents dragged us around to greet uncles, aunties, family friends, so many rounds that my legs were practically numb by the end of it. Finally, at 11 that night, we returned to our new home. It was a small villa, nestled in a quiet, well-kept area. I went straight to shower and removed my makeup. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight. Stuart was sitting on the couch in his pajamas, hair still damp, a few stray strands falling across his forehead. He looked different. Less like the meticulous businessman I knew, and more approachable. He was staring at a tablet. I spoke without thinking. Still working this late? He looked up from the screen and met my gaze. I'm not working. I was waiting for you. We didn't know each other well, really. Hardly talked beyond the necessary. I was still trying to figure out why he'd been waiting, when he set the tablet down and stood up. It's late. I nodded. It is. So? Stuart said. We should sleep. Before I could react, he was already in front of me, pressing me gently against the wall. His hand rested behind my head, tilting my face upward to meet his. His sudden closeness left me dazed. And then, I felt the shift in his body. The heat. The weight of it. The air between us thickened, burning at the edges. Maybe it was because I hadn't touched a man in so long. Maybe it was the undeniable strength of his body. Maybe it was the intensity in his eyes. Whatever the reason, something in me moved on its own. I found myself slipping my arms around his neck. Let's go to the bedroom. Stuart and I were officially married now, nothing could be more legitimate. We hadn't signed any kind of prenuptial agreement, and honestly, I never planned to stay celibate forever. Now, with a man like this willingly offering himself, I couldn't bring myself to resist. It only took a few seconds to convince myself. Just fulfilling each other's needs. We were adults, after all. We stumbled our way into the bedroom. No clue where our robes ended up. I had assumed Stuart was the cold and restrained type, at worst, a secretly wild man hiding under a prim facade. But I was wrong. He didn't bother pretending at all. He gave in completely, exposing all of his raw desires without hesitation. The ceiling light wasn't even on, but somehow, I kept seeing it swing above me, over and over again. The moment my thoughts started drifting to the clouds, I couldn't help but sink my teeth into his shoulder. He groaned, then chuckled softly. Diana, you still love to bite, don't you? I didn't catch the full sentence. By then, I was far too gone. I had no idea how many times I bit him. All I knew was, when I woke up the next morning, Stuart was standing with his back to me, getting dressed. The muscles along his back were lean and well-defined. If only they weren't covered in red and purple bite marks, he would have looked perfect. I buried my head in the blanket and pretended to be asleep. Stuart finished dressing and came over, gently patting my head through the covers. "I know you're awake. You don't have to get up if you don't want to. I'm heading to the office. Make sure you eat something. And if anything doesn't feel right, call me right away." He said it all at an easy pace, his voice still hoarse from the night before. It wasn't until I heard the door close that I slowly crawled out from under the blanket. Lying on my back, I stared up at the chandelier, dazed. Well, that definitely hadn't been part of the plan. Chapter 6. After that night, things between Stuart and me really did improve. He started coming home for dinner. Listened patiently as I gossiped about high society drama, occasionally chiming in with a comment or two. In return, I accompanied him to events and banquets, playing the part of the elegant wife on his arm. As a bed partner, Stuart was more than qualified. He didn't mess around outside, got regular health checkups, and as a member of the carefully curated Myler family, he came with excellent credentials. The more time passed, the more satisfied I became with this arrangement. Even my parents began to notice the change in me. "Diana, it's been a month since the wedding, and you've put on a little weight. Your complexion looks so much better too." My mom smiled. "That means Stuart's treating you well. They say love is like tending to flowers. If the flower's thriving, it shows." Then her tone softened, and she sighed. "But when you suddenly came home before, your face was so pale and thin, it broke my heart just looking at you." My cheerful smile froze for a split second. "And we were having such a nice moment," I muttered. My dad was quick to change the subject. "Well, it's time to focus now that you're married. Starting next month, you'll begin interning at the company. Get familiar with the business." Just like that, he laid out my next step, no discussion needed. When I got home that night, Stuart was just about to head into the study. He was meticulous about his work, sometimes staying in there until past midnight. He asked, "Have you eaten?" "I have," I replied politely. "You haven't." I paused. "But it's so late. I texted you earlier to say I wouldn't be home for dinner." He nodded. "I saw it. I just didn't have much of an appetite since you weren't here." There was something intriguing about the way he said it. I stared at him for several seconds without replying. Stuart stepped into the study, then stopped and looked back at me. "Something else on your mind?" I shifted my gaze away and absent-mindedly picked at my nail. "Not really. My dad wants me to help out at the company, so I'm planning to buy an apartment closer to the office. This place is too far, makes commuting inconvenient." "Then buy it," Stuart said simply. "Once you decide on the location, let me know. I'll have it set up. We'll need a new set of everything we're used to." "Wait. We?" I snapped my head up. "You're moving in too?" Stuart met my eyes and said calmly. "We've only been married a little over a month. Are you already thinking about living apart?" Was it just me, or did I detect a hint of hurt in that completely neutral tone? "That's not what I meant. If you want to move in, I'm fine with that." "Then it's settled," Stuart said with a smile. "Get some rest, wife." I blinked. Even after he closed the door to the study, I was still a little dazed. What's gotten into Stuart? Before I started work at the company, Stuart and I moved into an apartment near the office. I didn't buy anything too big, it was just the two of us, and he didn't come over every night anyway. A bigger place would have been a waste. My dad didn't make my identity public at the company. He just had me work at his side as a junior assistant, assigning me a mountain of tasks every day. He was clearly serious about grooming me. Once I got busy, time started flying. In the blink of an eye, 6 months had passed. One early winter morning, we got an unexpected visitor at the company. Henry. I was walking past the general manager's office with a stack of documents when he suddenly came chasing after me. Diana? He looked confused. What are you doing here? I didn't expect to see him either. I gave him a polite but distant smile. I work here. He was an executive from another firm, he must have been here for a business meeting. I didn't say much else and stepped into the elevator, heading up to the top floor. Henry stood there frozen for a few seconds, then turned back to the general manager's office. He asked. That young lady just now, what's her position at the company? Chairman's assistant, the GM replied, confused. Why? No reason. Henry said, pausing before asking again. Do you happen to know what her husband does? The general manager blinked, then turned to his secretary. The secretary replied. I don't think Diana's married. Never heard her mention a husband. The moment Henry stepped out of the building, he pulled out his phone and called Paul. Paul. Guess who I ran into today? Chapter 7. 4 days after running into Henry, I was blocked by Paul on my way home from work. He was leaning against a luxury car, dressed in a finely tailored suit, attracting plenty of attention from passers-by. Diana, he called out to me. Doesn't look like your life has gotten much better since you left me, huh? I ignored him and walked past, but he frowned and grabbed my wrist. He lowered his voice. You've been mad long enough. Isn't it time to let it go? Wouldn't it be better for you to come back and keep being a pampered little rich wife, doing nothing? I couldn't hold it in any longer and snapped. Are you out of your mind? I told you, I'm married now. Married? Who'd believe that? Paul smirked, casual as ever. Diana, I wasn't around. Who the hell would you even marry? Just talking to him was exhausting. Before I could reply, a hand reached from behind me, elegant fingers, firm grip, and pulled mine out of Paul's grasp. It was an unmistakably assertive move. I didn't even know when Stuart had arrived. I didn't know what he'd seen either. But the next thing I knew, I was in his arms. He looked at Paul, his face wearing a polite smile, though none of it reached his eyes. She married me. Got a problem with that? To be honest, Paul's 6 feet 0 inches wasn't short by any means, but standing next to Stuart's 6 feet 2 inches, he suddenly looked small. Maybe it was the aura. Paul's expression finally changed. He looked at me, then back at Stuart. It finally hit him. He finally realized that the girl who once looked at him like he was her entire world no longer gave him that special treatment. He turned to Stuart. Who are you? I slid my hand into Stuart's and replied calmly. My husband. Stuart. Stuart turned to glance at me, a smile in his eyes. Maybe it was the way we looked standing together, maybe it was how natural our affection appeared, whatever it was, something about it clearly got under Paul's skin. He grew agitated. Diana. You really got married? Want me to show you the marriage certificate? He growled. How could you do this to me? I busted my ass starting a business, socialized night and day, all so I could give you a grand wedding someday, and you dumped me over something so trivial? And now you're married to someone else. How could you do this to me, Diana? Don't make yourself sound so noble. Stuart's voice was cold now. He glanced at Paul's car. Did you buy that car for Diana too? And that designer suit, was that for her? You're the one chasing status, feeding your ego, and now you want to play the moral card? Who gave you the right? And another thing. Stuart didn't give him a chance to respond. What you consider a trivial matter might not have been trivial to Diana at all. I never expected that one day, Stuart would be the one voicing the words I hadn't said. I couldn't help it, there was a light in my eyes as I looked at him. Noticing Paul's gaze flick toward me, I acted on impulse and clung to Stuart's arm. Honey, that was amazing, I said sweetly. Stuart paused, visibly startled. A hint of red colored the tips of his ears. Paul completely lost it. He stepped forward and swung his fist at Stuart. That was finally enough for Henry, who had been hiding nearby watching everything unfold. He rushed over and dragged Paul aside. Stuart didn't even spare them a glance. He simply took my hand and led me away. We walked in silence the whole way. It wasn't until we got to the apartment entrance that I finally broke it, a little embarrassed. You can let go now. I need to scan my fingerprint. We went through our usual routine, dinner, showers. He'd typically head into the study to work, and I'd do a little cardio. But tonight, something changed. Still wearing his bathrobe, he blocked me just as I walked out of the bathroom. And then he kissed me, hurried, intense. It was like he was angry. I barely managed to catch my breath and instinctively explained. There's nothing going on between me and Paul anymore. He's the one who can't let go. Stuart's voice was low and husky. I know. Then what is this about? I just wanted to kiss you. Liar. That kiss didn't stop at just kissing, it carried us straight to the bed. It wasn't until I came back to my senses that it hit me. Damn it. I've caught feelings. Why else would my first reaction be to explain myself? To worry if he was upset? This marriage of convenience was no longer purely business. I didn't have time to overthink it. My thoughts were drowned once again in the storm that was Stuart. Chapter 8. I didn't expect to run into Paul again so soon. It was at a business gala, and Stuart had brought me along. He chatted confidently with the other CEOs while I stood beside him, smiling as needed. It wasn't exactly easy. I hadn't been standing long before my back started aching, a leftover problem from my years of running around with Paul. Noticing something was off, Stuart leaned over and whispered in my ear. Go take a seat and rest for a while. I nodded and excused myself discreetly. But I stopped short before even reaching the lounge area. Because I saw him, Paul. He was sitting on a sofa with a glass of red wine, chatting with a group of young men and women. He'd always been good-looking, and in recent years he'd cultivated charm and eloquence too. Naturally, he drew a lot of attention. One bold young woman giggled and asked. Paul, you're so young and successful, do you have a girlfriend? No. He smiled and took a sip of wine. And then, he saw me. Our eyes locked across the room. The girl persisted. Really? Someone like Paul shouldn't be single. Paul gave a half smile. Just broke up. There was a round of teasing. Aww. Sounds like Paul got his heart broken. Amid the playful banter, Paul began to talk about his ex-girlfriend. She made me her whole world. Brought me breakfast every morning, ran out in the middle of a snowstorm to buy me cold medicine, picked me up drunk from bars. She once waited for me in the rain for 3 hours. The others stared, amazed, and then sighed. Someone asked how he could have let someone like that go. Paul looked over at me again and smiled wistfully. Yeah. How did I lose her? A girl asked quietly. Didn't that hurt, Paul? He froze a little and turned to look at her. She looked like she came from money too, composed, assertive, and not afraid to strike. You just said she did all those things for you, brought you breakfast, medicine, waited in the rain, but you don't seem that heartbroken about it. The whole group fell silent. Paul looked awkward. The girl smiled. Sorry, I'm a bit blunt, hope you don't mind. It's just. When Paul was talking just now, he seemed almost proud, which surprised me. If my boyfriend had waited in the rain for me for 3 hours, I'd feel awful for him. So, really, it's no wonder Paul lost that girl. She glanced at her manicured nails, then stood up. What a boring party. Anyone can get in these days. That was a slap in the face if there ever was one. Paul's expression darkened. That's when I walked over and took a seat. Miss Myler? Someone recognized me. Where's your husband? I smiled. He's chatting with some friends. What were you all talking about? Looked like a lively discussion. They looked confused, clearly wondering what part of that awkward mess had looked lively. Realizing the tension, they rushed to change the subject, and turned it to me. You and Mr. Smith seem so in love. Totally. I ran into Mr. Smith at a cocktail party the other day. He couldn't stop talking about his wife. So sweet. I heard you weren't in H City for a few years, Miss Myler. Went abroad to clear your head. I nodded. Yeah. Ran into a wall, got hurt, came back. You're hilarious, Miss Myler. We chatted casually, back and forth, while Paul remained silent. A few minutes later, Stuart arrived. He didn't even glance at Paul, just walked straight to me. Had enough rest? Ready to go? He held out his hand, and I placed mine in his palm without hesitation. He led me away. Even after we left, we were still the center of discussion. A well-informed voice lowered to a whisper. I heard that while Miss Myler was away, she didn't go abroad. She was dating some broke guy and fell out with her parents over it. No way. One of the girls gasped. She must have been really heartbroken to come back like this. A young man fresh from studying abroad stared at our retreating figures. Wait. Who are they? The earlier one explained. Miss Myler is the only daughter of the Myler Group. Mr. Smith is the head of Future Tech. They just got married last year. Business marriage, sure, but it looks like a real relationship too. Paul froze. Wait. Diana? Chapter 9. Stuart led me to the garage, where the driver had already pulled the car around. As I slid into the back seat, a young woman's face suddenly popped around from the front passenger side. Hi, Diana. It was her, the girl who had roasted Paul earlier. You? I blinked, surprised. You are. Erica, Stuart said as he climbed in from the other side. My cousin. Just got back yesterday. I quickly greeted her. Nice to meet you. Erica beamed. So you're the girl my cousin's been talking about all these years. Finally, I get to see you. You're gorgeous, Diana. I didn't have time to ask what she meant by all these years before the driver hit the brakes hard. Stuart instinctively reached out to shield my head. The driver rolled down the window and shouted. Hey, do you have a death wish? Paul was standing right in front of the car. He spotted me in the back seat and rushed over to the window. Diana. Get out, I need to ask you something. I rolled the window down. Then ask. Paul was panting. They said. You're the only daughter of the Myler Group? Yes. He slammed his fist hard against the car. Then why the hell didn't you tell me? What difference would it make? I asked him. If you knew I was the only daughter of the Myler Group, would you stop constantly testing my love for you? Would you suddenly feel secure? I curled my lips in mockery. I doubt it. So, Paul, what exactly are you frustrated about? The car window slowly rolled up. I gave Paul one last look. If you ever date again, stop playing those mind games. If you don't trust someone, don't go hurting her. Let's go. The car pulled away, and in the rearview mirror, I saw Paul's figure slump. His shadow grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. We first dropped Erica off at her home. As she got out, she exchanged contact info with me. Once she stepped out, the atmosphere inside the car subtly shifted. Stuart placed his palm over the back of my hand. Tired? Not really. If you're tired, you can rest for a bit. I didn't feel like talking, so I closed my eyes and leaned against the window. After a while, a warm hand reached out and gently lifted my head to rest on his shoulder. I heard a soft sigh. Stuart, I slowly opened my eyes. Do you like me? The air seemed to freeze for a moment. I felt Stuart's body stiffen, but seconds later, he completely relaxed. His voice was pleasant, and his answer was certain, yes. Why? I had always thought we were just a business marriage, a superficial couple. Diana, we've known each other for almost 17 years. I thought about it. Indeed, we had attended the same prestigious elementary school as kids, and our families once lived close by, so that's how we met. But we barely spoke, and once we entered middle school, we went to different schools. Stuart was always that perfect kid to me. My parents never pushed me, but I often heard them praise Stuart, how polite and humble he was, how smart and determined. Our marriage was arranged by the Smith family, who actively approached us. Though I didn't know the exact reasons, my parents were extremely pleased with him. At that time, I had no other thoughts, just felt he was a good person, so marrying him was fine. As for Stuart liking me, that possibility never crossed my mind. Stuart said, "Do you remember where we first met? Who remembers something from over 10 years ago?" I said nothing. He smiled. "I remember. 17 years ago, on my way to school, I was almost kidnapped. You saved me." I dug deep into my memories. Suddenly it clicked. So it was you. Chapter 10. I was only 10 years old then. The school wasn't far from my home, but my parents didn't feel at ease, so they had bodyguards escort me every day. After all, children from wealthy families are easy targets for criminals. One day on the way home from school, I saw from a distance a child being forced into a van. Without thinking much, I directed my bodyguards to follow. We followed the van for several kilometers until we cornered it in a remote alley. The bodyguards kept telling me to stay safely inside the car, but I was disobedient and ran out. While the bodyguards fought the kidnappers, I used my small size to open the van's trunk, crawled in, and untied the boy who had been beaten badly. He was skinny and shorter than me. Just as I was about to pull him out, the driver suddenly jumped up. Seeing us in the back, he reached out to grab us. I was startled but pulled the boy hard and bit the man's wrist. At that crucial moment, the boy's bodyguard arrived, accompanied by the police. The kidnappers fled in a hurry. The boy and I sat on the roadside, he was too scared to speak. I looked down at my hand, my baby tooth had fallen out after being hit and biting the man. The boy suddenly sobbed softly. I turned to look at him, awkwardly comforting. "Don't cry, the bad guys are gone." I imitated how adults comfort me. "Don't cry, I'll give you a gift." The boy looked at me with tears in his eyes. What kind of gift? I hadn't expected him to take it seriously, and had nothing to give, so on impulse, I handed him my fallen baby tooth. Stuart, who was nearby, smiled. "I still have that tooth now." I covered my face, blushing, and finally couldn't help but say, "You are awesome." "Just kidding," Stuart laughed more warmly. I took it home and kept it in a box on my roof. They say that way you grow new teeth faster. I found out your name and class then. From that moment, I started paying attention to you. You're different from those rich kids I know. You can be friends with ordinary people and spend an entire afternoon playing with a stray dog by the roadside. Our marriage was something I actively fought for. Stuart's voice faltered and lowered. So when you came to me asking to break off the engagement, for a moment, I didn't want to agree. I pressed my lips together. But you still agreed. Yes, I agreed, and I went through with it. He said. Though neither side's elders consented, it's undeniable that if I had tried, our engagement would have been invalid. Out of selfishness, he didn't try. I tried to keep our faint relationship alive with that engagement. Hearing that, my heart trembled. I couldn't quite put the feeling into words, just a sour, bittersweet sensation. Stuart looked at me and smiled. What? Feeling sorry for me? So that was it. I nodded, a little. Stuart paused and said nothing for a long moment. I reached out and linked my arm through his. I wasn't lying before. I don't like Paul anymore. From now on, I have nothing to do with him. Since I married you, living our life well together is more important than anything else. Chapter 11. While Stuart was taking a shower, Erica sent me a message. She was lively. If my brother ever treats you badly, come to me, I'll help you teach him a lesson. I smiled and replied, okay. Just seconds later, she messaged again. But I don't think that will happen. My brother may seem cold on the outside, but he has a warm heart. He likes you so much, how could he treat you badly? It was like she had opened a floodgate. A year ago, when you suddenly called him, he was attending my graduation ceremony. The moment he heard you wanted to marry him, he left me alone overseas and came back. Click. The bathroom door opened. Stuart came out. He glanced at me. Why aren't you resting yet? I put down my phone and looked at him intently. Waiting for you. He was momentarily stunned. I stood up and walked over, slowly embracing him. Sorry to keep you waiting so long. Stuart lowered his gaze, a torrent of emotions surged in his eyes. In an instant, his lips met mine. The room lights went out, leaving only my phone screen flickering. Erica, Diana, are you listening? Erica, why aren't you replying? Everything I said is true, I'm really not my brother's accomplice, and I didn't take his big red envelope. Erica, huh? Why isn't my brother replying either? What exactly are you two doing? The end.